Wildlife Federation's The Hide. Hey, welcome back, everyone. Mark Kakich here at the Hotel Mead with the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation's The Hide. Today's special guest is Mark LaBarbera, and we're here at the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation's annual meeting. And Mark, thanks a lot for taking some time out this morning to join us. We had some great interviews yesterday with Bill Smith and Eric Loebner. It was fantastic. And I hope that, we welcome you kindly this morning.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm on a high right now after the first half of the meeting we had Friday night was amazing with Bill Smith and with Keith Warnke. And today is going to have Secretary Payne, plus an interesting new report about the economic trends on conservation spending in Wisconsin. So it's a great weekend.
It's going to be pretty interesting to hear that spending report and the forecast for the future and how we're going to make things roll faster and better than we have in the past. But to get started today, let's focus on Mark LaBarbera a little bit. How did you get started in conservation, and what are some of the roles that you've played so far, and how did you end up here at the Federation?
Well, I started out as a hunter and angler right in West Dallas. We used to chase pigeons and rabbits, and then of course the suburbs grew up around us. I went to school for journalism. Right out of college, got a job working for Archery World magazine, which is now Bow Hunting World. And then a year later, took a job at North American Hunter magazine, and we grew the North American Hunting Club from 25,000 to 525,000 members.
That's outstanding.
Then we launched Fishing Club and a Handyman Club and sold that business in about 98. I went to work for Minnesota DNR. The idea was to get into conservation and be giving something back. So I was head of information and education in Minnesota. Then I got hired away by Safari Club International, and their world headquarters were in Tucson. So I spent a few years there. And then my wife, Connie, and I decided we need to get back to Wisconsin. That's where it's just home, That's where we want to hunt and fish. So we ended up moving back, and before too long, I retired. Within a year of retiring, I got a call from a couple of board members from the Wildlife Federation. George Meyer announced he was going to be retiring. So I applied for that job. I thought, well, I'll put my hat in the ring. It'd be worth it just to be able to be mentored by George Meyer in that role. And sure enough, I ended up getting the job. And it's been amazing ever since, just to see the number of members and affiliates who are making a difference in Wisconsin.
Well, the commitment to the Federation is great. We have over 211 organizations that support the Federation and countless individuals. And we just went into an agreement with ICF to be part of the Federation, which is phenomenal, with especially all the attention on sandhill and whooping cranes right now.
And we have to thank you for that, Mark. The work that you did to reach out to groups that we don't always agree with on everything makes a difference, because there are things we can agree on, and there are mutual benefits of working together. So like the International Crane Foundation, there are other groups that we'll also be reaching out to, try and connect and work on the things that we can agree on.
There's always common ground somewhere, and I think it's our responsibility to find that common ground and approach those relationships with the anticipation of it's to make everybody better, and in conservation included. And I think, Stephanie Schmidt is who I've been dealing with primarily the last couple of years from ICF. But 8 years ago, they reached out to us in the Horicon Marsh Learn to Hunt program, asking to be part of it. And that's how, that relationship, grew and started a fantastic relationship that grew into, support for the Federation and Federation support for ICF. But now, yesterday we had George Meyer on the show as well. And one of the things that George is noted for was leaving a legacy in conservation, and a lot of his legacy involves the Federation. So you have some humongous shoes to fill, but we hit the ground running, right? And now we look back at the last year and a half, 2 years, and wow, where have we come and where are we going? Let's focus a little bit on, hey, it's 2023. Where's the Federation going right now?
Well, it's going to continue to grow. We're already seeing that. And there's something about the Federation that really appeals to people. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we reach out to cover a lot of different subjects. There's species-specific groups and there's habitat groups, and we cover all of that, plus advocacy and education. And I think that's going to continue to attract members and affiliates.
Well, I think, the buzz over the last 5 years especially is R3. What are we doing to recruit and retain and revitalize and bring back, hunters into the fold? I think, the Federation has committed to an increased presence in R3, and I think that's fantastic because, it encompasses every age group, right? And I think that's what we need to get across to everybody, that there is something out there, whether it's hunting, fishing, trapping, that you can participate in. And every one of those opportunities has an opportunity to increase a positive mark for conservation.
That's true. And there are those 3 R's in R3. A lot of people focus on the recruitment, but what we're seeing is that recruitment effort and the work that we're doing and others also makes a difference on retaining hunters because they want to be mentors to this next generation. And not only do we retain, but we reactivate. Some guys who said, I don't have a place to hunt anymore, or I don't have my buddy died, or, something like that. Now they have a place where their knowledge and their skills can be shared with the next generation. So the recruitment is helping the retention and the reactivation.
So one of the other things going in R3 plays a role in it is conservation funding, right? Conservation funding, there's always a question mark. Well, coming into 2023, there's a lot of external forces that make that question mark so much bigger. How is it, Knowles Nelson going to be? Is it going to be accepted? Is it going to be continued? What are some other options for conservation funding? And how are we going to fund all of the conservation work that needs to be done on existing properties here in the state, as well as how are we going to increase the opportunity to grow the great places that we do have right now to hunt, fish, and trap? So what are we looking forward in 2023 with some of the conservation funding efforts?
Well, we know that we have to find additional sources. We cannot continue to keep the burden of conservation funding on the backs of hunters and anglers and licensed buyers. We need to open our arms to more people pitching in. And Recovering America's Wildlife Act is one example of how we could tap into new funding to help us with great habitat work, and that would benefit all species, not just those of special need.
And, that act is now being brought back after it didn't make the last cycle, but it's coming back, and hopefully it will get passed and move forward, because financially it could have the largest, most significant impact. It could be having the most impact ever on wildlife and conservation.
That's so true. The numbers we're talking about, instead of spending $950,000 or $1 million roughly in Wisconsin, we'd be talking about $18 million. It would ramp up, and it takes a while to get projects going.
Sure.
But $18 million a year would be a huge increase, and a lot of good that could be done.
Well, there's always a way, right? You just have to have a will, and the people need to see that they have a significant role to play in letting the legislators know that this is important to them. And, hunting, fishing, and trapping always has a spotlight, but the folks that are non-consumptive users also play a significant role in looking at the big picture, because right now that big picture, clean air, clean water, also has a very significant impact on what we call, the hook and bullet club, right? So I think there's room for everybody to sit at the table, everybody to get involved and produce positive results.
I agree.
So, before, I know you're busy this morning with the meeting and we got to get going, but one last thing I want to touch on is this podcast was designed, when I sat with Taylor and said, hey, we need to figure a way to make this work. And it was conservation, communication, and collaboration in amongst the stakeholder groups and the general public. And one of the things that pops up always is, what are we doing legislatively to promote and produce a more quality environment for, Wisconsin conservation? And right now, across the country, everything has to be red and blue, right? Unfortunately, there is a dynamic that we need to break. And I think right now in Wisconsin especially, we have a new chair of the Natural Resources Board. Bill Smith is excellent, great personality, and a dedicated individual who has a proven past of dedication towards conservation. And we now have a new secretary for the Department of Natural Resources, Adam Payne, who, I was fortunate enough to spend a little bit of time, but he's coming in. We're going to corral him later today. And his personality suits Bill Smith's personality very well. Right? I mean, those two, I think, can work together to get past a lot of the problems that we've seen in the last 10 to 15 years between the board and the department. But what are some of the things that this organization specifically is doing to help, create change in culture, as well as bring to the legislative piece to improve and promote conservation?
We're working on a number of fronts. We work with the legislature, we work with policymakers, we work with the DNR, and we have the affiliates around the state who are reaching out to their local legislators as well. But a lot of on-the-ground work, the Learn to Hunts, the firearm safety classes, conservation projects that are doing great things with wetlands and other habitats. So I think there's no one solution. I think it's working on all of these fronts, advocating for sound scientific policies and rules that make sense for everyone, and to really work on access for all. So I think if we keep doing that and don't back off anywhere, there's a good chance that those who would want to retreat to extremes are going to be pulled towards the middle, or they're going to be irrelevant, or they won't be in office.
Right. And I think that's the key is to get to that middle ground as fast as possible, because it's proven that both sides have contributing individuals that can make conservation in Wisconsin and for some cases in the country much clearer and much more efficient and much more enjoyable. So hopefully Wisconsin Wildlife Federation here in 2023, 2024 cycles are able to have a positive impact and leave and start to create, again, another legacy for the Federation and how impactful we can be in the legislative piece. Before you exit and prepare for the meeting this morning, what are some of the last things that you would like to put out to the folks?
I think one of the key things is listen to the Hyde podcast. You got Mark and Taylor and Chase putting together great programming with solid content and some guests who are right there. It's like you're in the room behind closed doors with the decision makers and influencers in Wisconsin. And I think if you guys keep doing what you're doing, and the Federation members and affiliates keep doing what they're doing, and Bill Smith, the Natural Resources Board, all the elected officials do what they can to move towards a better future for natural resources without politics involved, or minimize the politics,
right,
I think we'll be good.
Taylor's not here today, so we can talk 2 minutes about Taylor. So, when the DNR allowed Taylor to be a permanent guest on the show, I think not only does it add some credibility, but it goes to that collaboration piece. It shows the willingness and the understanding how important it is that the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources play a significant role in driving that collaborative communication amongst all the stakeholder groups. And hopefully that we can, here at the Federation and the Hyde, provide that platform for folks to communicate back and forth with the department on a very regular basis, where they don't necessarily have to wait, to go to a natural resources board meeting, or if they're a little bit shy of communicating or don't know how, that, they can communicate directly with the Hyde, with us, through Facebook or, emailing the Federation. So I think, thanks again to everybody at the department for allowing that, fantastic relationship, to blossom and bloom and open more doors for all of the user groups here in the state. And again, thanks a lot, Mark, for taking time outside of your busy schedule today to come and sit with us and just broach some of these topics that, you'll be a regular guest on the show. And we can't wait for the next topic. So hopefully today is a fantastic meeting and we can share all the great things the Federation is doing with everyone.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I look forward to doing some of these out in a blind or in a boat somewhere.
Well, the last thing we have today is, I think this is going to look fantastic on Mark LaBarbera's head. Right? It's one of the Hyde podcast hats. And again, thanks, Mark, for all the hard work and dedication that you give, not only to the Federation, but most importantly to every one of the users for the natural resources and conservation here in the state. Chase Baker behind the camera, the guy that makes everything, happen, who provides the driving force to get out to the public. Without Chase, this would not happen, and that's clear to understand. And Chase, thanks so much for your dedication to conservation. And until the next episode, everyone have a great day, and hopefully the snow melts quick. We can get out fishing, and turkey hunting is right around the corner. Actually, it started. Take care, everyone. Until the next episode. Thanks.